Paul McAuliffe. He wishes to discuss historic allegations of abuse by members of staff in the probation service.
Ken Corla and Minister, first of all, I want to acknowledge that Minister McEntee is unable to take this issue, but I want to thank you for being here to facilitate the matter being raised. Over several months I have raised, by way of parliamentary question, the issue of historical sexual abuse in the probation service, and in May, in a written answer from the Minister confirmed that 2 allegations of child sexual abuse had been made in regards to the probation service, and in the Minister's words, they related to a deceased member of the probation service. Now, this matter has also been the topic of media coverage, and I know RTE Investigates carried out the programme Scouting Dishonour, in which they referenced the then Chief Scout Joe Lawler and allegations in regards to him and his service in the probation service, and I know Joe Duffy and RTE Radio have also discussed this case. I appreciate, Minister, it's an incredibly sensitive issue, but unfortunately a victim who has come forward to me has said that he feels that there's a cul-de-sac now in terms of justice, and he feels that, like many other institutions where sexual abuse took place, there's always a stigma in victims coming forward and in articulating the allegation. But in this case, there's almost a double stigma, because many of these people were the subject of the probation service, and in order to reveal that they had been the subject of sexual abuse, they also then have to reveal that they were the subject of the probation service. I've asked the Minister on several occasions if she will consider carrying out a review of the file within the Department of Justice, or an investigation, or some form of inquiry which would relieve those victims, and I believe there are others out there who haven't yet come forward by the nature of the circumstances I outlined, that we would actively facilitate them, because it is accepted now. It is accepted now that abuse took place in other organisations by this particular gentleman. And what we want to do is find out what did the Department of Justice and what did the Probation Service know in regards to that activity over that time. There's been a lot of discussion in regard to Scouting Ireland, changes within that organisation. Ian Elliott's report references particular individuals. But if there are cases of sexual abuse in the Probation Service, in my view, the Minister should take those allegations incredibly seriously, and we as a state should relieve the victims of the burden of having to go to the media, to go out there and raise these issues. And we should carry out an inquiry based on the allegations which we have received, and review the documentation to see what was known. My understanding is that, and again, these matters have been reported in the media, that complaints were made to the Probation Service as late back as 2000, and other reports have said that they were made back as late as the 1970s. So, as I say, within the limits of what I can say in this House, Ken Corla, I would ask the Minister if she can carry out an inquiry, review whatever documentation is on file, and to see if victims can be brought together. And instead of forcing people down the process of legal action, which delivers justice for very few, we actually put in place a process here where people who are impacted in this way can receive justice, and they can be dealt with sensitively.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you.
And I want to first apologise for Minister McEntee's absence. I understand she's at a Justice Council in Luxembourg at the moment, and sincere apologies that she's not here to answer this. Deputy McAuliffe will be aware from previous responses to parliamentary questions submitted to the Minister that records indicate that 2 allegations of child sexual abuse have been made in relation to the probation service. Both relate to alleged incidents in the 1970s by a former staff member who is now deceased. As the Minister has also previously advised the Deputy, the Minister is informed that when the first allegations came to the attention of the Probation Service, An Garda Síochána and relevant services were notified and a criminal investigation was initiated. As the Deputy will be aware in general terms, Criminal investigations can only be carried out by an Garda Síochána, who then, as appropriate, submit a report to the Director of Public Prosecutions. The DPP operates independently and then decides whether or not somebody should be prosecuted and for what crime, on the basis of the Garda findings viewed against the background of the common law or statute law. The Minister for Justice, as a matter of law, cannot intervene in this independent process. The Probation Service later became aware of a second allegation against the same former staff member, who by that time was deceased. This matter is the subject of a legal claim which is being managed by the State Claims Agency on behalf of the Department of Justice. As I'm sure the Deputy will appreciate, I am not in a position to comment further as the matter is ongoing. I and Minister McEntee would encourage anybody who's been a victim of any kind of sexual assault to reach out for help and support and to report the matter to an Garda Síochána. There are specialist Garda members in every Garda division, trained to ensure that any victim presented to Gardaí are met with a consistently high standard of specialist, sensitive, professional and expert help. There is also a range of victim support services available, and many are listed on the Victims Charter website at www.victimscharter.ie. Rape crisis centres throughout the country also offer advice and support services to victims of rape and sexual assault, and operate a national 24-hour helpline which can be contacted at 1800 77 88 88. The HSE also has a national counselling service, and the details of that are on the HSE website.
McAuliffe.
I welcome the Minister putting those points on the record, and I want to join him in encouraging anybody who was the victim of sexual abuse in a historical context or otherwise in the probation service to come forward. A probation officer has a sense of huge trust. The reports which came to me involved not the person themselves being the subject of a probation, but actually a family member. And the threat was used that if this was disclosed, if this sexual abuse was disclosed, that family member would be subjected, and I say family member, it was another child, would be subjected to the probation service and the power that they have. It's an incredibly important position in society. They do incredible work, but like all of those trusted important positions, people who are willing to commit abuse against children use those positions. And we have learned so much in the past that victims should not have to fight every inch. And I would say at this very early stage, and it would appear that there are very small numbers, that we would try and look for a mechanism that would avoid a legal route being the only route for justice. I imagine there are more seasons member, and I see I think the longest serving member of the House here, Bernard Durkin, along with Richard Bruton. I think there's a dispute there, but but I'm sure you have seen more times than anybody else, deputies, how victims are forced to use the legal process as the only way that they can secure justice. Surely we can step back from this. We can put in place a process. The issue of criminal investigation is not open when there's a matter of when a deceased person. It's right that people say, what did the state know? When did they know it? And should they have acted? And that might all be above board, but it's right that people can ask that question. And I'd ask again that those files be reviewed and that mechanism is put in place to help victims who've been through an immense torture.
Yeah, look, I'll reiterate what I said and what Deputy McAuliffe has said about reporting any crimes. It's very important to always say that. They'll be treated seriously and sensitively. And I'll pass on the points that he made to Minister McEntee as well.
Thank you, Deputy, for raising a profoundly serious matter here. We move to the third item which I've selected. That comes from Deputy Alan Farrell. Deputy Farrell.